I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. Welcome into our last draft show before draft night. And if you haven't already seen on our social media, because you're not following us, we are doing a live show, a live draft night, April 29th, starting at 7:30 Eastern, exclusively on YouTube. We will bring you exclusive coverage of the entire first round, and I will have two guests with me, Mr. Justin Courtwright and Seth Thornton, two guys you have already met on our college game day pick'ems. They are with me on the show today, and they will be with me on draft night. So like I said, follow me on my social media so you can stay up to date and get your virtual invite exclusively on YouTube. The Locker Room Podcast 615 on Instagram, The Locker Room Host Jacob on Facebook, TLR with Jacob on Twitter, and The Locker Room 22 on TikTok. This episode of The Locker Room is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your gym and health needs. Clothing, recovery, supplements, anything you need to have a happier and healthier you, FNX Fitness has you covered. Made here in the beautiful USA, FNX Fitness. Use your promo code TLRHOST. That is TLRHOST for 15% off your order. Listen, so as I have already mentioned, I am about to be joined by Seth Thornton and Justin Courtwright, and we are going to talk nothing but the draft. And I know some of you are at home going, Jacob, dude, what the hell? We've had draft shows the last 2 weeks. Listen. This is the last draft show, before the big live draft show come April 29th. All right, so you're not going to hear too much more about the draft until April 29th, and we're going to be live starting at 7:30. It's going to be a ton of fun. But this is kind of poetic for me. So I started The Locker Room last year at the draft. The draft was my big show. And so it's kind of poetic for me, right? It's come full circle. I've made it an entire year doing The Locker Room podcast. Now, I'm not doing this to pat myself on the back, but it is kind of crazy. I was reading statistics about podcasts and why so many of them fail or why so many of them go out after 15 episodes. And a lot of it's just the dedication of the content creator. They're not dedicated to what they're talking about, therefore they're not going to put out the content. Listen, my content might not be the greatest, but I am dedicated to The Locker Room and to you all as much as anybody can be dedicated to anything. I mean, I think my wife would also like to add that I'm dedicated to her. But, you know what I mean, guys, right? But it's just super cool. It's super poetic for me that I started on the draft, and now we're back at the draft, and we're going stronger and stronger each and every week with the Locker Room podcast. So thank you, guys, because it's a special moment for me, all right? I'm not going to cry, but it's a special moment. But there's so much to talk about when it comes to this draft. Now, there's been some moves that have been made, but we're going to focus mainly today on the first 15 picks of the draft. And then we're going to talk about our quarterback rankings. This is something that a lot of people have been asking me. So I decided to slide in our quarterback rankings in the show today. And listen, Justin's quarterback rankings will blow some people's minds. So the quarterback rankings are going to be towards the end of the show, so you need to make sure that you're sticking around till the very end because you will not want to miss what's going to happen today. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. And then we're going to talk a little bit about teams that are going to trade up, teams that we think are going to move on draft night. There's a couple of teams that have been rumored out there, but we're going to come out and give our most likely teams to move around. We're going to give you our first draft picks, and then we're going to finish off our mock drafts to open up draft night on April 29th. So don't worry. If you're like, dude, I want to see the rest of your draft, I will have them posted on Instagram, the full drafts, and then, of course, we are going to open up the show talking about the rest of our draft come draft night. But enough of me rambling on. Listen, we've got two awesome guys coming into the show today, so I don't want to push this off any longer. let's bring in the fellas. Now we'd like to welcome in two personalities that you have seen on the show. They were the anchors to the College Game Day series that will be returning this coming college football season. Mr. Justin Courtwright and Mr. Seth Thornton, welcome back to the program, guys.
How's it going?
Hey, listen.
Thank you.
So we are massive draft fans, and I told the people last week that you guys would be coming on because we wanted to get into a little bit of the mock draft. We wanted to talk about our top quarterbacks. We want to talk about possible trade-ups, and the people get to know. It is official. We are doing a full live draft show on draft night, picks included. It's going to be a lot of fun live on YouTube. More information for that will be, of course, in on my Instagram and all over my social media. So make sure you're following the Locker Room all over there so you can stay up to date with us. But we're going to go ahead and get straight into it. So you guys know over the last couple of weeks, I got into my mock draft. And I gave you my first full round of mock drafts. And today, Justin and Seth and I are going to break down the top 16 picks of our mock drafts. I'll kind of keep quiet, guys, because you've already heard my whole spiel about them. But, gentlemen, to start off the bat, pick number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is a pick that everybody in the entire world can agree on. It's not going to change. It never will change. I mean, there's nothing that could happen that could make this pick change. Trevor Lawrence has got to be going number 1. I have him number 1. You guys, I'm sure, have him number 1 on your draft boards.
I've got a curveball for you. I'm going to
What's
go
that?
Trevor Lawrence, number 1.
Oh, okay. Trevor Lawrence, number 1. I figured that was going to be your pick. Justin, what about you?
I'm also going. I think Trevor Lawrence is going number 1. Personally, I don't think he's the best quarterback coming into this draft. He is not my top. He's not my top quarterback coming into this draft. My top quarterback's going to be drafted actually second in this draft, and Zach Wilson. He's my top quarterback out of all quarterbacks in this draft.
Well, we are going to get into the quarterbacks and our ranking system here in just a little bit. And but Seth and I were talking actually earlier. If there were ever two players in this draft that we would consider non-bustable, right? Like picks that just, if you pick them, they're going to be 10-year NFL starters, without a doubt, possible Hall of Famers. If that was ever a real thing, we know injuries can occur and wild things can happen, and there's no such thing as a non-bustable player. Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Pitts were the two people that we talked about as being players that, listen, it is the safest pick you can make in this entire draft. There's no chance here. Trevor Lawrence has got to go number 1. And leading into number 2, Justin already said that he's going Zach Wilson here to the Jets. Seth, who do you have going number 2?
I've also got them taking Zach Wilson.
Well, yeah. Here's how I look at it. I'm going to say something that's going to shock a lot of people, but it shouldn't if they've done their research. And I have a lot of people that agree with me. If anybody's heard of Chris Sims, he does his podcast, and he said something that I took notice of, and I researched it. If you look back at all his games this past year, even the Coastal Carolina game where he's somewhat a little bit struggled, if you look at the receivers, if you look at his own line, he had nobody open. Nobody was open. It was just a one-man show. I think Zach Wilson is hands down a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. He's going to be a multiple Super Bowl champion. He's the best quarterback in this draft. He's a generational type player.
Well, it wouldn't be a show, guys, if we didn't bring Justin on here to make wild accusations, make wild assumptions, and go for it all. So I appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate the hot takes. So I'm interested to see what Seth has to say about what Justin just said.
There's a lot. I am not that high on Zach Wilson. I think because of people like Justin, he's been extremely overhyped this season. His numbers weren't ridiculous. They were good numbers, but they weren't things we haven't seen. He played in a lesser division and still didn't do crazy things. I mean, his pro day was good, but we saw all 5 quarterbacks throw passes almost the same. I think the Jets royally messed up during the season winning that game because they could have had a generational quarterback, Justin and Trevor Lawrence, but instead they're having to settle with Zach Wilson.
And I would definitely agree with that one, Seth. If they could have just lost that game, I would have gone for Trevor Lawrence, who was your most sure quarterback. In my personal opinion, in this draft, he's going to be just an instant plug-in, good player for 10 years with the ceiling of being great and a Hall of Famer. So there's a ton of room there. Let's move on to our next pick, but because we do want to get into the QBs a little bit later. I don't want to spoil too much of the good stuff. But at pick number 3, the 49ers. Now, this is a pick that a lot of people have gone back and forth on. I've seen Trey Lance here. I've seen Justin Fields here. I've seen Mac Jones here. And the real question is what the hell are the 49ers doing? I know that they've been in complete arguments. The owners thought one way. We've seen Kyle Shanahan's thought another. So there's apparently some internal beef as to what quarterback they want to take. Now, I know traditionally Shanahan has worked with pocket passer guys that aren't very mobile, guys that like to sit there and make the safe throws. He likes the quick routes. He doesn't like to bomb the ball deep. So I'm interested to see does he go away from that? I said yes. I said that he goes out of his comfort zone. I have him picking up Trey Lance here, sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo for a year because, and like I said, we're only going off what we're told, and that's that they want Jimmy Garoppolo for a year. Without a doubt, he's going to be their quarterback for this upcoming season. If that's the case, a guy like a Trey Lance, a guy like a Justin Fields would be a good spot here to sit behind a quarterback and learn for a year. But there's a lot of different mock drafts that I've seen that could go either which way. So, Seth, I'll toss it to you first. What do you have going on with this 3rd overall pick? I know you've seen a lot and we've discussed a lot with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I have them taking Justin Fields. I just can't imagine the 49ers trading into the top 3 to number 3 to not take a quarterback. I mean, if they really want to ride out with Garoppolo, they may have tried to get here because they know one of these top 2 receivers won't be there when it was their turn, but I just don't see it. I think they have to go quarterback if they're going to go all the way to the top 3. So I'm going to go with Justin Fields on this one.
Yeah, I think Kyle Pitts is the only other, for me at least, is the only other option I would even take at 3 or even consider at 3. But we all know you don't trade up into the first 3 or 4 picks of the draft if you're not considering taking a quarterback. So they've got to go quarterback here, and they might say Jimmy Garoppolo is here for the year. But we know for a fact that next year, if they do draft a quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo is not their guy. They're going to look to move him this offseason. Justin, I'll toss it to you. At pick number 3 here, there's a lot of different quarterbacks. Who do you have going at number 3 overall?
Well, look, it's simple. So, you got to think, Kyle Shanahan, he likes a certain kind of quarterback. There's a reason why they traded for Jimmy G. He fits the Kyle Shanahan offense. Kyle Shanahan is a run-first type of coach. He likes to run the ball, short passes, get him in rhythm, and then when it comes to it, throw the ball deep. And if you look at Justin Fields, if you look at Trey Lance, they don't fit that mold. There's a lot to like from them. There's also a lot to be hesitant of. I look at it as Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers GM. They went to Mac Jones's pro day, right? And they have come out and said they love Mac Jones. They want him. And so Mac Jones is my 3rd pick off the board, quarterback from Alabama. I guess the only negative thing you can say about him is he doesn't look cool in his uniform. He's a more chubbier white kid. He just doesn't look cool in his uniform. It just looks like a regular old Joe out there in a uniform. So, and so I just think that he fits it, and I think they're going to go with him at number 3 overall.
Well, here's something I would throw out to you. If there's ever going to be a mold to be broken, I think the 49ers are the team to break that mold and go with a more mobile, up-to-date quarterback like a Trey Lance, like a Justin Fields. The problem I have with taking Mac Jones here, and I wrestle with this quite a bit, is he has already discussed how Jimmy Garoppolo does have his ceiling, how Jimmy Garoppolo has already struggled and can't really fix his system, right? Doesn't mold his new system that he wants to run. He wants a younger, more athletic system, and he can't do that with Jimmy Garoppolo. So why would you draft a guy that already has a similar ceiling to a Jimmy Garoppolo? He is by most scouts' papers say an unathletic quarterback. I just don't see the fact that Mac Jones is going to be able to slide into that spot there. If they are going to, in fact, stick with Jimmy Garoppolo, then that makes sense. Fine. If you want to draft a Mac Jones, someone who's going to be the exact same guy as Jimmy Garoppolo, then more power to you. But I think he's going to try and break the mold here. And listen, he's on a short leash. Kyle Shanahan doesn't have a whole lot more seasons to continue to lose with such a good team all around him, a good defense and a good offense. So for me, you've got to go dynamic here. You've got to shake up the mold. You've got to change it up. And if you want to keep Jimmy Garoppolo for a year, get a quarterback that you want to sit behind Garoppolo for a year, let him learn, and move forward. Seth, any comments on that?
No, I agree. Justin Fields has more potential to change their offense up with his legs. We've seen him run. We know he can run. If they were going to go Mac Jones, it would be to just groom him under Garoppolo for a minute. I mean, I think Mac Jones is a great quarterback and will do great with just about any team he goes to, but what's the point of getting Mac Jones if they've already got Garoppolo?
Exactly.
Garoppolo's got more experience. It doesn't make much sense.
Let me push this to you guys. I've got a question for you guys. Who do you think was better, Mac Jones or Tua, in their final season with Alabama? Who would you say would be better?
I think Mac Jones had a lot more NFL ready talent, but Tua also had an insane amount of talent. It's kind of hard to not be successful at Alabama. I mean, we've seen players like AJ McCarron, who, while they, were a good backup in the NFL for several years, were loaded with talent. Like, guys like that are always going to look and be more successful at an Alabama when you have nothing but NFL starters all the way around you. So it's hard to judge Mac Jones based on just this one singular season compared to Tua, because I think Tua went through a little growing pains with those Alabama teams.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're right to a certain extent. I just feel like Mac Jones broke every record in the final season for Alabama. He broke the passing record in a single season. He broke the touchdown record in a single season. He broke the yardage record in a single season. So you got it right. Alabama has all the talent every year. They're the best team with the most talent every single year because of how they recruit. And if Tua couldn't do it, and Mac Jones did it. That kind of points out like there was a little bit of something there. And Tua, of course, you saw that he went high in the draft. And I just think that this has to be the 49ers pick. It's just, this is Kyle Shanahan's type of guy. And of course, they didn't do well last year due to all the injuries. And now they're all coming back healthy this year. Kittle, Joey Bosa with the torn ACL. They'll all be back this year. And I just think the 49ers are going to make some noise in the NFL this year.
But let's move on because we had spent a whole lot of time on the third pick. At the number 4 overall pick, now the Falcons have a ton of needs. And when I say a ton of needs, the Falcons need every position on defense, could use basically every position on offense besides wide receiver. At this point, wide receiver would be a luxury, I think we could say, with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and some of those guys. But at the end of the day, like the Falcons are one of those teams that we all can assume are probably going to trade out of this pick and pick up more draft picks. But we're not going to talk about any of that right now. So at the number 4 overall pick, of course, I had Penei Sewell. If they're going to keep Matt Ryan, it looks like they're not trying to stay and get a quarterback here at 4. There's nobody that they love. I would assume that the Falcons are going to try and protect at least Matt Ryan for the next year or two while he's under contract. But Seth, I'll toss it to you. At this number 4 overall pick, with the Falcons having so many needs on every side of the football, what do you have going on here?
I mean, Penei Sewell would be the safest pick for
Yes.
team needs and skill base and every other measure. However, I think their offense wasn't the reason they lost the games they did. I think it
Nope.
was their defense was just so bad. And if they don't move out to get more draft capital and they do in fact take a fourth pick, I would think they would want to address their defense, and what better player to help that than Michael Parsons. And he could be a leader of that defense, and that would be a great place to start.
Yeah, I think Micah Parsons is one of the most underrated defensive players in this draft. The way I look at Micah Parsons is he's one of those generational type of leader from the linebacker positions, and physical, yet he is very, very, very good in coverage and very quick in open space, which is that rare breed of linebacker that you love. Reminds me a lot of Luke Kuechly, somebody who was very active. He reads plays early, but he's very good in coverage. He's not a limited linebacker, so he would make that defense, especially for the Falcons, 10 times better just by adding that one singular player. Justin, to you, though, on the 4th overall pick for the Falcons, with so many needs here, do you go offense? Do you go defense? And like I said, we know that they're most likely going to trade out of this spot, as they've talked about heavily as of late, taking several phone calls. But just for the sake of this draft, since we're not doing trade outs, who do you have going to the Falcons?
Well, yeah, obviously I think they're going to trade out, but if they don't, they have to address their defense. Their defense was the reason they lost a lot of games last year. They were up on the Packers by 10 points, ended up losing that game just because their defense could not stop Aaron Rodgers. They were up on the Chargers by a touchdown. They couldn't stop Justin Herbert. And so they lost that game. They were up on the Chiefs too, until Patrick Mahomes came back and torched that defense as well. So they got to go defense. Now it's just what position they go. And obviously, I feel like their corners are good enough to get the job done. Their safeties, they've got a good front four. They have to go linebackers. And Michael Parsons is definitely the pick there. He ran a 4.3 in unofficial time at his pro day. What can you say about that? He's fast. He was a beast at Penn State. He's good at recognizing the ball, where the ball is. He's great in coverage. So Michael Parsons slam dunk at number 4 right there.
Yeah, I say the Falcons, if there ever was going to be a defensive guy that they would go get, I think they would have to go Micah Parsons here. It doesn't make much sense. Seth, I'm going to add one guy to our list of that Kyle Pitts and that Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to add Micah Parsons to that list as a guy where it's going to be very, very hard for him to bust, right? He's one of those unbustable players for me in this draft. I think Micah Parsons has a very high ceiling. Moving on to number 5, the Bengals. Once again, a ton of needs, especially on the defensive side of the football. Running back, they definitely need to beef up there with a ton of injuries to mix in last year. Offense, Joe Burrow could use a ton of more weapons. So the real question is do they go and protect their star quarterback, or do they go get their star quarterback some help in the offensive side, whether it's wide receiver or tight end here? I've seen a lot of mock drafts with Kyle Pitts. I've seen Jamar Chase. I've seen Devontae Smith. But then for me, I am and this is just for me, I am a protect my young assets guy. So I went Rashawn Slater here, the second best offensive lineman in this draft. If it's me, if I'm paying all this money to my future, I want my future to still be there in 2 seasons, right? So I went offensive lineman here that could protect Joe Burrow. He came off a bad injury last year, bad offensive line breakdowns across the board, one of the most sacked and pressure quarterbacks in the entire NFL. So I went Rashawn Slater here. Seth, I'll go to you again just to start it off. Who do you have going here at number 5? Because there's a ton of really, really good options.
Yeah, there's a lot they could do. I will have to agree with you, though, on protecting your young assets. I mean, Burrow is the future of that team any way you look at it. And if he hadn't gotten hurt this season, you might not worry about the offensive line too much.
Yeah.
But he did. And so that becomes an immediate necessity for me. And with the first 4 picks in my draft, if they go the way they go and Penny Sewell's still on the board, he's just the clear pick. I mean, I understand they need help at wide receiver and Jamar Chase, good friends of Burrow, and that would just be a great duo to reconnect. But I would rather my quarterback make it through a season than throw it to his favorite receiver.
Yeah, 100%. I am with you. I'd rather throw to Joe Schmo, who is not very good, and still be able to throw that football rather than have another broken collarbone or torn ACL because your line can't protect you. And like you said, if Penei Sewell is on the board there to the Bengals, that tandem of Joe Burrow and Penei Sewell, I think could be the same kind of tandem that the Jeff Saturday and Peyton Mannings of the world had, a few short seasons ago, right? Like, I think they could be that lineman and quarterback tandem that just is one of the best, we've seen in a very long time since
they already have a very young offensive line.
Yes.
And I'd say they only need about one or two more spots filled.
I would agree, yeah.
Well, would fit in. I mean, he's a big man, but because they do have two decent tackles, they could put him on the inside. I wouldn't, but they could.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, if there's anybody I would move, it's kind of like when you have a tight end or that a lot of people have talked about Kyle Pitts moving to wide receiver. For me, if you're that good at the tight end position, I kind of leave you where you are, right? I would move everybody else who might be mediocre around you or even good around you before I move somebody that's great at that one particular position. But Justin, we'll go to you at pick number 5. Who do you have going to the Bengals?
Well, you see, they've got a good receiving core. They've got Tyler Boyd, you got T. Higgins, you got Joe Mixon. They've got weapons, all right? Joe Burrow could have been Rookie of the Year if he never got hurt. He was on the pace to get Rookie of the Year over Justin Herbert, who I love Justin Herbert. But he was a beast, right? He kept him in a lot of close games. A Bengals team that shouldn't have even been close in a lot of games, but he's the reason that they were close. So you got to protect the young guy. And it's just a slam dunk. You got to get Penei Sewell. All right. As much as Ja'Marr Chase or Kyle Pitts they would love to have, you got to protect the young guy. You got to keep him healthy. And the only way you do that is you got to get him someone to keep those big defenders off of him.
So we're all in agreement there. They've got to protect the young assets. Moving on to number 6, one of the most intriguing teams in this draft, because they already were a talented team last year with a very good defense. The Miami Dolphins come in here at number 6 with a lot of different options that they can have at this 6th pick. Now, for me, I pick Kyle Pitts because I think Kyle Pitts is, of course, a non-bustable player, but could be one of the biggest talked about playmakers since a Megatron. I love what he's done. He has an insane catch radius. His footwork is incredible. I love Kyle Pitts. I can't say that enough. For me here, I go weapons for Tua. Give Tua every opportunity to succeed. Some people have had the Dolphins moving up and getting a quarterback. All that's nonsense. You give your young quarterback every opportunity to succeed here, and I think they go get Kyle Pitts, a massive weapon for Tua. Seth, I'll go to you. Do the Miami Dolphins get Tua Tagovailoa an offensive weapon, or do they get him more protection?
A weapon for sure. And Kyle Pitts would be a great weapon any way you look at it. However, I go back to what I said on the previous pick where Joe Burrow would love to have Ja'Marr Chase because they've played together and they're used to one another and they were a good duo. Mm-hmm. Same goes for Tua and Devontae Smith. They played great together. They know each other. They're friends. And so in reality, it comes down to which one of those 3 guys do you want? Kyle Pitts, Ja'Marr Chase, or Devontae Smith? Because all 3 have extremely high ceilings. Mm-hmm. All 3 played incredible in their college days.
Yeah.
But Tua is most comfortable with Devontae Smith. And so I would prefer, if it were me, to go with a player my quarterback's more comfortable with. So here I have the Dolphins taking Devontae Smith.
Justin, I'll go to you here. Who do the Dolphins take? Do you have them getting a weapon for Tua?
I'll make it short, sweet, and simple. Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith. I'm actually very intrigued at that pick. The more we were talking about this and when I was looking at your guys' mock draft, I think Devontae Smith would be an awesome tandem with Tua Tagovailoa down there. Moving on to number 7, the Lions, another team with they remind me a lot of the Falcons. A ton of needs. They got rid of a lot of their very good weapons, and Galladay's now gone, right? So for me, you bring in another quarterback, you trade Matthew Stafford, you've got to give Jared Goff some sort of help. I don't see how you get a guy like that and then you just say, screw you, right? Like, we're going to go get a safety. For me, you've got to go Ja'Marr Chase here, somebody who's a dynamic playmaker, somebody to at least give Jared Goff some sort of help. Justin, who do you go with here in this pick?
You've got to get Jared Goff weapon. And it's between Kyle Pitts or Ja'Marr Chase, but I just think that with Hockenson there, they've got a good tight end already. They've got another young tight end right behind Hockenson, who's coming up. He had a good year last year, especially against my Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. He fairly did really well against them. So I got to go with Ja'Marr Chase right here. Just makes sense with losing Galladay. They got to replace him somehow. And what better place to replace him than Ja'Marr Chase?
What I like about Ja'Marr Chase here, too, is Ja'Marr Chase is, I think, one of the most pro-ready wide receivers. He doesn't need a whole lot of help. He's got instant route capabilities. He's got very good hands. He's a decent blocker. So I think Ja'Marr Chase is the safest option here. I've seen a lot of mock drafts with Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle here, which I find very interesting. But for me, this team, Jared Goff's got a couple years here. They've got to give him somebody that's an instant impact. Seth, I'm going to go to you. Who do you have going to the Lions here, bud?
I'm totally with Justin on it's got to be Ja'Marr Chase or Kyle Pitts. It's one or the other. And, on my mock draft, I have Ja'Marr Chase going number 7 just because they've got a good young tight end already.
Yeah.
The thing to think about, though, is Calvin Johnson could have played tight end if he wanted to. He was just a freak of nature.
Yeah.
And he just dominated wide receiver. I can see Kyle Pitts being the exact same. He doesn't have to play tight end in the NFL.
Yeah.
He can play wide receiver. And he could be Megatron 2.0.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest comparison that a lot of people have had with Kyle Pitts is he is a young Megatron. He is, and I completely agree. A crazy catch radius, incredible footwork. Kyle Pitts just has it all, and he has the potential to be another Megatron. Like I said, this is a no-brainer here. Moving on to pick number 8, the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Carolina Panthers, I talked about this last week on the podcast. Of course, they picked up Sam Darnold at the QB position. It looks like they're going to be moving off of their starter, and Sam Darnold's going to be the guy here in Carolina. So, like I said, I didn't factor in trades and all of this to my mock draft, for the simple reason that this stuff gets very chaotic when it comes close to draft week. And then when it comes on draft day, like it goes bonkers. So I went with Justin Fields here. If Sam Darnold wasn't picked and traded over to the Carolina Panthers, I think this would have been a no-brainer to have Justin Fields fall to the Carolina Panthers. So my pick is kind of irrelevant just for the simple fact that the Carolina Panthers went and got Sam Darnold. But reports have come out earlier this week that the Carolina Panthers are not opposed to picking up a quarterback at the 8th overall spot. And I mean, which intrigues me. If that's the case, then Justin Fields would be the fit that they need there with a young head coach, with a young offense, with a ton of deep wide receivers. Honestly, one of the more underrated wide receiver cores in the NFL. Justin Fields would fit there. But Seth, I'll go to you. At this pick here, with the fact that we now know that Sam Darnold is a Carolina Panther, who are you going to go with?
Yeah, see, I think they will keep both quarterbacks, and I think they will do a who wants it more thing in the beginning of the season and let one of them fight it out to get it. So with that, I think they're going to give either of them the most help they can give them. And with the guys left on this list, with Smith and Chase both being gone, it's got to be Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I mean, he would just improve their offense ridiculously.
And think about that. You're adding Kyle Pitts to Robbie Anderson, Moore, You've got Christian McCaffrey finally going to be back and healthy, which is, as we all know, one of the most dynamic and best running backs in the league. You add a Kyle Pitts to that offense, it's going to be very hard for either one of these quarterbacks, whoever wins the job, whether it's Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold, to not succeed in this offense. Let's just be honest there. Justin, I'll go to you. Since you have Ja'Marr Chase going to the Lions, do you have Kyle Pitts now falling to the Carolina Panthers and falling in line right with Seth?
Well, yeah, I do have Kyle Pitts there. As much as I love Ian Thomas, he's a great tight end for them. I like him out of Indiana. He's good. He's a good tight end. He's a very reliable tight end. I just think that they need a little bit more help in that position, especially giving Sam Darnold, who I think is going to be. I think he's a great quarterback. I think Sam Darnold is definitely a franchise quarterback. Of course, he didn't have any help in New York, so that's why it looks so bad in New York. It's because in all the years that he was there, they gave him no help whatsoever.
Well, actually, they did give him help. They gave him Robbie Anderson, but then they traded him away. So
that's right. And so you just need to get your franchise quarterback, which is going to be Sam Darnold, some help.
I mean, I would agree that I think that they are all in with Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold will have absolutely no excuse after he plays for the Carolina Panthers. This is either sink or swim time for Sam Darnold, and I think they giving him Kyle Pitts would be it's just silly how many weapons this guy will have down there, going from the Jets, of course, who had nobody, to now going to an offense that is pretty well loaded, and with Kyle Pitts could be one of the better ones in the entire NFL. Moving on to number 9, the Denver Broncos, another team that a lot of people think are going to trade out here, but for the simple fact that we are keeping no trades here, I have the Denver Broncos taking Micah Parsons. The way my draft lines up, I think Micah Parsons is the best defensive player on the board, best linebacker right now in the league, and even in everybody's pro days, I think he's kind of separated himself by a massive margin as the best linebacker. Seth, I'll go to you. Do the Denver Broncos go defense here because we know their offense is so loaded, or do they go offensive line and just give every opportunity for their quarterback to succeed?
Yeah, I think if the Broncos were smart, they would continue with Drew Lock.
Yes.
For the meantime, and give him the most protection they can. And with that, I would go with Rashawn Slater, which you've already said is the clear-cut second best lineman in this draft.
Yeah.
And he would help a lot. They need it.
Yeah, I think they definitely. I'm with you. I'm running with Drew Lock here. I'm not a big fan of just dumping off of Drew Lock after a couple bad seasons, and I'm not even saying that he was bad overall or that the team was that bad overall. They lost a lot of close games, which a lot of people don't understand as well. It wasn't like they're being blown out like the New York Jets. They're not a 2-15 team. A ton of injuries plagued that team as well. So a lot of their star players like Noah Fant was out last year in several games, So when you're losing a lot of your help, it's kind of like that Eagles scenario with Carson Wentz for me, which is when all of your good players are injured, there's only so much you can do. So I'm not mad at Lyman here at all. I think that you do need to protect Drew Lock here. Justin, I'll go to you now. Who do you have the Denver Broncos taking?
Well, look, I don't think they're going to go off of their quarterback, Drew Lock. I think he's going to be. They're going to ride it out one more year with him. This is the one team I don't think would trade out. Of this pick, I just don't see them wanting to trade out for this pick because they definitely need one more O-line to solidify the O-line. That O-line is already they already have a pretty good offensive line, and so I think adding one more good offensive lineman would help Drew Lock, and I think that's going to be Slater from Northwestern. I just think he's the next best lineman out there, and so I think that's where they're going to go in that direction.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Second best lineman in this draft. Moving on to pick number 10, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I think we're all pretty clear on where the Dallas Cowboys need to go in this draft. With the way our drafts have lined up, Kyle Pitts is already off the board. Ja'Marr Chase is off the board. Devontae Smith is off the board. Those are all those other guys that a lot of people have the Cowboys being able to get at this point are off our boards. So for us, I'm going to probably go ahead and say it. We're all going cornerback here. So for me, I like Caleb Farley. I think he's a little bit longer, a little bit more active. And I explained this last week. I like physical cornerbacks. I like the Richard Shermans of the world. I like cornerbacks that are going to continually nag and push and point and prick at the wide receivers the whole game. That's my personal opinion on why I like cornerbacks and my type of cornerback. So I went Caleb Farley here from Virginia Tech, a very aggressive cornerback. But Seth, I know I was talking about you in your mock draft. I know you've looked at Patrick Surtain, the second going to the Dallas Cowboys here. He is one of the better playmaker cornerbacks of this league. So I'm going to go to you, Seth, because I'm pretty sure you're going cornerback here. Did you ever decide what cornerback you're taking for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Surtain. I think at Alabama, I think he's, like you said, extremely physical. But I think he has the most potential.
Yeah, he has the best playmaking ability, I think, out of all these corners.
Yeah, I think he's extremely talented. He played, as Justin already mentioned, in the hardest division there is in college football in the SEC, and he did it every single weekend, and he did his job correctly every single weekend. And that says something right there. And the SEC, surprisingly, has slowly grown in passing, which means being a cornerback in the SEC has become a little bit more difficult. And he did good. He's lived up to the typical Alabama corner that goes in the first round somewhere. He's that guy. He can be just as good as Marlon Humphrey. He can be Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's got that type of ceiling.
Yeah, I would say 10 years ago, the cornerbacks for the SEC were linebackers just lined up on the outside. I mean, let's be honest there. But as passing has grown so much, I like Surtain. Very, very, very dynamic playmaker. He's the kind of guy that will intercept the ball and then take it back to the house, 49 yards. That's the kind of playmaker he is. Caleb Farley, on the other hand, is not that type of guy. While he's gotten interceptions, he's going to just beat the living hell out of receivers that come his way. Justin, I'm going to go to you here. Excuse me. Are you going cornerback here as well?
Yeah, I am. The Cowboys have a lot of needs on the defensive side of the ball. Their offense is solid. They don't need any help on the offense. After re-signing Dak Prescott this offseason, their offense is good. They don't need any help on the offensive end. It's the defensive end I look at, and I had a tough choice between Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain. I believe Caleb Farley and Patrick Surtain, they're right neck and neck with each other. They're both great cornerbacks. I have Caleb Farley, my number one cornerback, and Patrick Surtain, my second cornerback. But it's just all who the Cowboys like better.
Yeah.
And getting Trevon Diggs last year, and the way he turned out, I just think that's the direction they're going to go towards the Alabama guy, and they're going to get Patrick Surtain to go alongside with Trevon Diggs on the other side to lock down that position.
Yeah, both sides. They were one of the worst passing defenses in the entire league last year. So without a doubt, you're going cornerback here. And at worst, you're going safety. They had one of the worst safety tandems in the NFL as well. But either one of those guys, I think, is going to be a complete home run. And I like the fact that two Alabama boys teaming up on the same team. That'd be pretty dynamic. Let's move on to pick number 11, the New York Giants. Now, I have them taking Jason Owen, the defensive end out of Penn State. They need edge pressure. Seth, who do you have the Giants taking here?
I think the Giants need a lot of help. I think they're a good team, but their defense isn't quite where it needs to be.
Yeah.
But I think there's multiple positions on defense they need that I actually think they're going to go offensive line and Christian Darrisaw, the tackle out of Virginia Tech, to protect Barkley a little more and protect Jones a little more.
Well, the interesting thing about that is they went out and got Jones just a ton of weapons, right? They went out there and they got him they got him a bunch of weapons in this offseason. So they're giving him every opportunity, like these young cornerbacks or quarterbacks that we're talking about. They're giving him every opportunity to succeed, like the Sam Darnolds of the world, and saying, hey, we've given you every weapon. If you fail after this, it's on you. So that makes complete sense to me that an offensive lineman would go there as well. Justin, I'm going to go to you. The New York Giants, who are they taking here?
Well, I think it's pretty simple who they're going to take. They got a great defensive line, and they're just missing that edge rusher. They struggled last year getting to the quarterback a lot on the edge, not on the inside, but on the edge. So I think Quinny Pay from Michigan is the pick here, and I just don't see them going any other way there.
So at number 12, the Eagles come up in this spot. Now, the Eagles need a ton of help, like we all know. Some people are even saying that they might even go quarterback here and get rid of Jalen Hurts. No. Jalen Hurts is going to be their guy for this upcoming season. If that's the case, give your young quarterback help. I preach this over and over and over again. While they need a ton of defensive help, while they need offensive line help, the Eagles have got to go a dynamic playmaking wide receiver. I have them taking Devontae Smith because he's still left on my board. Justin, I will go to you here. I know Devontae Smith is off your board. He's off Seth's board. So who do you have the Eagles taking to help Jalen Hurts?
Well, I think then they got to go with the next best receiver that's available on my mock draft, and that's Jalen Waddle. He's a fast guy, great hands, and I just think you got to give your young quarterback some help. Now the Eagles need a lot of help. They need a lot of help on the offensive line. Their offensive line is getting old. They need some linemen. They need defense. But for now, I think you got to give your young quarterback some help. So Jalen Waddle is my pick for that.
And Seth, to you, who do you have the Eagles taking here to help Jalen Hurts?
I'm also going to go Jalen Waddle. I think if he had not gotten hurt, there's a great chance he would have been the number one receiver off this board.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And he is honestly one of the closest players watching him in college that I can say looks like Tyreek Hill out there. I mean, he creates that separation whenever he wants to. You can get him the ball on a short 1-yard pass, and he can take it the 99 that he needs to. He's just extremely talented with the ball. But he's also got a small amount of time with Jalen Hurts, which that can't hurt. We've already talked about that. So it's a win-win scenario.
Yeah, what I like about Jalen Waddle is his explosion off the line is one of those things that comes in a Tyreek Hill. Somebody who can instantly create separation when there's a press corner on you is a dynamic playmaker. I mean, we talk about speed guys all day long. Rondale Moore, we've talked about Elijah Moore, some of these guys in the draft. They're great speed guys, but they are not that great off the line. They build up that speed. And what I like about Jalen Waddle is the fact that he's able to create that separation instantly off the line. He's going to be a very good, very dynamic wide receiver if they do, in fact, end up landing him. At number 13, the Chargers. Well, they're not going quarterback because Justin Herbert, the second greatest Oregon Duck quarterback, absolutely dominated last year, won Rookie of the Year. For me, they had a lot of injuries, and the biggest problem was their offensive line. They had a lot, and I will dare say a lot of blown offensive line coverages. So I think they go Christian Darrisaw here, the third best offensive lineman in this draft for me out of Virginia Tech, protecting their young assets. And you're going to hear a simple theme here from me, and that is protect your young assets and get your young assets help. So Justin, I will go to you. The Chargers here, do they protect their young assets, or do they try and focus a little bit more on the defensive side of the football?
I think they got to go with Christian Darrisaw. They got to protect Justin Herbert, and I just think that's the pick they got to go with.
Seth, I'll go to you.
I do think they should go with a lineman in this draft. I'm just not sure if it should be the 13th pick, considering in my draft, the top 3 tackles have already been taken. I don't want to use the 13th pick on a fourth overall tackle when
Yeah.
I could wait till my second rounder to get someone close to the same talent wise. I think with J.C. Horn still on the board, helping out that cornerback spot, especially after losing King in the middle of the season, I think Horn is a good pickup for the Chargers right here.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your draft, with having so many of your star linemen and your top 3 linemen already off the board. Cornerback makes complete sense here after they already lost one of their stars last year. And a lot of people consider him to be the second best cornerback in this entire draft, or first best quarterback. So it's going to be an interesting pick here because his draft stock has risen immensely.
Well, on top of that, luckily for the Chargers, they were able to bring in 2 very talented offensive lineman free agents.
Yes.
So though it's still a necessity to get a lineman, I don't think it's a first round necessity. Now, I mean, if you are the Chargers and you're lucky enough to have someone like Rashawn Slater fall to you at 13, then sure, that's a no brainer.
Yeah.
But let's just go with that not happening and a couple of tackles are gone. I'm going with another position.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. I talked about this last week on the show as well. When you get past probably the 9th overall pick, you go with best available more than your position need. Like, if you don't need a quarterback, you've got to go with the best dynamic playmaker that you can find in this draft. So that would make complete sense there, especially how your draft lines up. At pick number 14, the Minnesota Vikings. All right, I have them taking Kwity Paye, right? Here's the biggest reason why. They played musical chairs with their defensive line all of last season. I mean, they would sign a guy, trade a guy. It seemed like they couldn't keep anybody in town for more than 5 minutes. So for me, they have to beef up their defensive line. That would be the biggest need, and that is the biggest need that I've seen in a lot of draft boards. Listen, their offensive line was actually one of the better protecting offensive lines in the entire league last year, ranked 7th. They have Dalvin Cook, who arguably played like the best running back in the league last year. Not saying that he is, but arguably played like the best running back in the league last year, just shattering an insane amount of records when he was healthy. They've got Justin Jefferson balling at a very, very high level. So besides their offense, let's move that aside. I think defense has got to be the focus here. Seth, I'll go to you. Defensive wise, do they go defense here, or do you just have them loading up that offense even more?
No, I think they definitely need to address the defense. And though they need different positions on defense, I think ever since they lost the presence of Griffin on the outside, paired up with Hunter, that defensive line just hasn't been the same. Now they brought in, I'm blanking on his name, the defensive tackle out of the Giants. Brought him in the free agency.
Yeah.
And so I still think they beef up the defensive line even more past that with your pick, Kwity Paye.
Justin, who you going with?
Well, with I'm a Bears fan, so I hate the Vikings, right? But the Vikings, they torched us. They torched the Bears, getting ungodly amount of pressure on Nick Foles and Trubisky. So their defensive line is young, but it's a good defensive line, especially adding Dalvin Tomlinson from the New York Giants. That is going to help them immensely because Dalvin Tomlinson for the Giants last year, he was just a wrecker in the middle as the nose tackle. He's a big dude. I think he's like 340, 330. And so he's 6'3", too. So, that's a big D tackle. And so he did a lot for the New York Giants last year. So I think there's only one position that they need, especially since Harrison Smith is getting older. They got to go safety. And I think it's Trevon Moehrig from TCU. He is my number one safety in this draft.
I think, I think he's everyone's number one safety. This guy is testing off the charts across the board right now. And I watched him play because, of course, you are a TCU fan, so you've seen him play a bunch of games. I watched him play a bunch because whenever I'm around you, TCU football's on. He is one of the better safety prospects I think we've had in the last few years. So that would be an absolute home run if the Minnesota Vikings were able to snag somebody like that.
and he just jumps off your screen. When you watch TCU, if you've ever watched a TCU game this past year, there's only one player that just jumps off the screen for TCU Horned Frogs, and that was him. But this guy is someone that you can just start day one, and he's just going to be a wrecker for your team. So you got to go with him.
So at number 15, this one's a very interesting one as well. And we're going to talk about this in just a few minutes. We got two more picks here. But the New England Patriots made a ton of offseason moves. They still have a ton of needs here. For me, though, if there's a quarterback left on the board, I have them taking Mac Jones here. But for me, if you're going to go anywhere, it's going to be quarterback for the New England Patriots. So Seth, I'll go to you. With a quarterback like a Trey Lance still on your board, do you go with a quarterback here for the New England Patriots?
I do, but not Trey Lance. I have them taking Mac Jones just like you. I think, there's argument to be made of either Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones, which one is more like Tom Brady out of the group of guys being drafted. And honestly, I'm going to say Mac Jones is more like Tom Brady than Trevor Lawrence, just because Trevor Lawrence actually has a sneaky ability of running the ball.
Yeah.
Mac Jones does not. And so I don't think Cam Newton is going to cut it. I like the guy, but I don't think last year was a fluke because of different scenarios. I think it's just the way it was. He's getting older, and he doesn't have the arm talent that he did. And I think Mac Jones is the quarterback they need. I mean, Justin's already said how good he is. You put him in that system with that coach and the weapons they just got him this year, he'll do good there.
Well, and I think Mac Jones will succeed very highly at a 2 tight end system, which is what the New England Patriots run very heavily, which is a ton of protection, very quick throws. Listen, I'm not a fan of Mac Jones's deep ball, and the reason I have him going to the New England Patriots is think about even when Tom Brady was there, they are not a deep ball throwing team. They like to keep everything 15 and in. They love to use the running backs, love to dump it off to the running backs as well. So I think if there's ever a system that Mac Jones can succeed very highly in, it's going to be a system like New England that doesn't make him go out of bounds of what he is. And that is a very good pocket passing quarterback who is not athletic. The same references that they were making about Tom Brady coming out of the draft. Now, I'm not saying Mac Jones is by any means Tom Brady, but the same kind of measurables, someone who's very unathletic, let's put it that way, but very accurate within the 15-yard range. And we've only seen as of late Tom Brady really be super accurate on his deep balls. It seems like he's like wine. He's just getting better and better with time. It's pretty insane. Justin, I'm going to go to you here. Mac Jones is off your board. The New England Patriots are not stuck with Cam Newton as their starter for the foreseeable future. Most people think that he might even retire in the next 2 years. Are the Patriots taking a quarterback here or what?
You know what? I would be shocked if they took a quarterback. I think they need more needs on defense. Right? They got J.C. Jackson from the Titans this year, and so that was a good pickup for them. But I think they need another cornerback to solidify. Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson. So J.C. Jackson's been injury prone, so you need someone that can plug in and he can play. This guy can also play the nickel if he needs to, and that's Greg Newsome, the second from Northwestern. If you watch Northwestern's games, he just pops off your screen on defense, and I just think he's the pick right there for them.
But at pick number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is an interesting pickup as well. They picked up a bunch of defensive help this offseason. They picked up, of course, offensive weapons in A.J. Green, J.J. Watt. Like, what do the Arizona Cardinals do here? I have them taking a cornerback. I think that's one of their worst positions right now, and Patrick Surtain the second. Now, you guys already have Patrick off your board, but are you going to go cornerback, safety here, Seth? Where are you going with this team?
I'm going to go with a position that makes an already good area of their defense just that much better. They've already got Chandler Jones. Now they have J.J. Watt. And I'm going to add the big man, Christian Baymore from Alabama at D-tackle.
Oh, okay.
I think he fits perfectly. I think they need him. And I think with his presence, that relieves pressure off of JJ
I was just about to say
and
that.
Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
I think their D line, I think they're just quarterback pressure in general is going to be phenomenal next year if they can grab that guy.
They could be one of the best defensive lines in all of the NFL, to be honest. The problem that a lot of people have with J.J. Watt is they're like, oh, he seems like he's slowing down. The problem with J.J. Watt is when he's being doubled and triple teamed every single play and there's no other relief on the other side of the football, it's just what happens. So if you gave him more space to do his thing along with Chandler Jones and you have to protect the middle net, like that would be a very, very dynamic defensive line. I like that pick. Justin, I'm going to go to you here at pick number 16, our last pick of the day. Who do the Arizona Cardinals take?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's simple. They struggled in two areas of their team last year, and that was the offensive line. They struggled a little bit, but it was mainly the inner defensive line. As far as the nose tackles, as far as the guy in there that can make the most pressure. They couldn't get very much pressure from the inside. People ran on them at will whenever they needed to. And so I just think it's simple for who they got to take, and they have to take Christian Barmore from Alabama.
Well, there it is. There's our first 16 picks of this draft. On draft night, when we go live on YouTube, we're going to open up the show with the rest of our mock drafts. I will also be posting their mock drafts on my Instagram, the Locker Room Podcast 615. So if you want to stay up to date with any of this, if you want to send in your mock draft, send it to me. I will comment on it. I will throw it up on my story. But let's get to a couple more subjects before we let the people go today, right? So we've already talked about quarterbacks, and we are ranking our top 5 quarterbacks in this draft. So I'll just go first because I'm the host and I get to do so. Trevor Lawrence is my number 1 best quarterback in this draft. I've already talked about him being an almost unbustable quarterback. I think Trevor Lawrence has potential to be a Hall of Famer instantly. Zach Wilson, I have him as my second best quarterback. He's got a lot of intangibles. He's got a very quick release, a big arm. I'm not completely sold on the whole Zach Wilson train, but I think in this draft, he's probably the second best quarterback as of right now, starting into it. At number 3, I'm going with Justin Fields. Listen, Justin Fields is getting super disrespected, and I am not an Ohio State quarterback fan because most Ohio State quarterbacks have not been very successful in the NFL. Let's just be honest. Some of them even changed their position to wide receiver. That's how bad they have been when it comes to the quarterback position. But I like Justin Fields. I think he has some intangibles there. Of course, he's got very good pocket presence. He's got very quick feet. He's got an accurate football, but just to what Justin alluded to earlier, he flattens out his arm when he goes to throw the football, which slows his mechanics down, which is something that worries me in the NFL, which is a quick throwing football league. But still, I'll keep Justin Fields right up there. At number 4, and I think this is just for the simple fact that I think this guy has the highest ceiling out of the entire draft, and I almost put him up there at number 1 as my most potential type quarterback. But Trey Lance has the most potential out of all these quarterbacks. Trey Lance is the rawest of the raw when it comes to the quarterback position here. Now, Trey Lance, as of right now, I think is the 4th best quarterback in this draft, but I think he's tied pretty closely with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is going to be, like I said, he's a good system quarterback, but I'm not I think Mac Jones, we've already seen his ceiling for the most part. He can't do much more than what he did at Alabama, which is just be a very good, accurate football player from the quarterback position, and that's not much more than you need. But I think Trey Lance has the biggest ceiling, and if he falls to the right team, Trey Lance sitting behind a good, experienced quarterback, he could be like a young Patrick Mahomes who comes in another year or another 2 years and completely starts dominating and taking over the league. The best running quarterback out of this entire draft as well. So that is my top 5 quarterbacks, Jacob's top 5 quarterbacks of this draft. Seth, let's go to your list, your top 5 quarterbacks.
All right. Well, like you said, it's really difficult not to put Trevor Lawrence at number 1. So he'll lead off my list. I'm going to go with Mac Jones, number 2, out of my top 5. I think he is going to be a great quarterback. I think he showed us what he could do at Alabama. And, if his receivers get open on whatever team he is, he'll do the exact same thing. I just like him.
So the problem I have
I've
with that,
got
let me throw a question to you. So you said that question right there, and I heard this conversation a lot this week. You said if his receivers get open, that's what he'll do when it comes to, he'll do the same thing that he did when he was at Alabama. The only problem I have with the NFL game is I do realize Mac Jones, and from what a lot of people are saying, is probably the second or first smartest quarterback when it comes to game recognition. The only worrisome I have is the same worrisome that I have with the Jimmy Garoppolo types, and that's the only reason I say that is because he's very similar in the fact that in today's game, at least, like even Tom Brady is struggling with this in today's game. Do you not think that Mac Jones needs to be a little bit more mobile in order to be a much more dynamic quarterback? Now, I'm not saying take off for 45 and 50 yards. When I mean mobile, I mean someone able to move in and out of the pocket at a rapid speed, or at least do you see that, I guess is what I'm asking. Do you see that potential from a Mac Jones? Because we know that's something that you need to succeed in this league.
I see that being a problem for Mac Jones. I see him molding his game after Peyton Manning, after Tom Brady, you know, maybe even a little bit after Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, just the prototypical pocket passer. Now, with that, he is unathletic, especially compared to the other four quarterbacks in here. However, at Alabama, I will say he did run very few times for a good maybe 5-10 yard pickup if he just absolutely needed to, if nobody was open.
Okay, yeah.
And I think he can do that. I just don't think it's wise.
Okay.
I mean, he's gonna have talent. I mean, you're in the NFL. There's if someone's not open, throw the ball away. He's a smart quarterback, like you said. He's been able to sit behind both Jalen Hurts and Tua all of his college career. And then the moment he got his opportunity after learning from those guys, he came in and balled out. Just like that, wherever he goes, he might not be the starter. He might have to sit, and that potentially could be better for him to learn. But nonetheless, if the pocket passing quarterback is going to survive in the NFL, they have to learn how to throw the ball away. Because just like a mobile quarterback will pick up 1 or 2 yards when they have nothing, instead of losing yards with the pocket passer getting sacked, just toss it away.
Do what Aaron Rodgers did. Now, a lot of people get pissed at Aaron Rodgers because he throws the ball away, 15 times a game. But at the end of the day, he's the least sacked quarterback in the NFL. I think that's something that a lot of people are very dismissive of when it comes to that type of quarterback play from the quarterback. So I didn't mean to interrupt your list. So go ahead. At number 3, who do you have?
Right. So number 3, I'm going with Justin Fields.
Okay.
I think he's extremely talented. I think he did great things at Ohio State. And his, mobility just propels him even further.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Zach Wilson at number 4.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go with Trey Lance at number 5.
Okay. Now let me, before I move on to Justin's list, at number 4, you said you have Zach Wilson. Now you've talked about how you're not too high on Zach Wilson. Is there any particulars as to why you're not that high on Zach Wilson? Is it something that you've seen particularly, or is it just, played in a weaker division of college football?
That's basically it, is playing in the weaker division. I mean, we've seen those diamonds in the rough that have played in weaker divisions and have come up and, turned out to be stars. But we've also seen on the much larger scale of them playing in weaker divisions and being hyped up and coming in and not producing. And though Zach Wilson has the ability to produce, I think he equally has the ability to be a bust. And when I say a bust, I mean a bust as in my number 2 pick and not doing what Justin is claiming. That will make him a bust. Now, if he comes out there and he plays like Drew Lock and he wins them 40% of their games, that's still a bust. I mean, that's the number 2 pick. That's a bust. He needs to come in there and eventually get them on the 70% win streak, you know?
Very much so, like Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. They were considered, I guess, I wouldn't say prototypical busts, but they were considered failures in their positions because at the 1 and 2 position, they were leading their teams to 30%, 40% winning seasons. So yeah, I can get on board with what you're saying there. It took me a minute to settle into the fact that Zach Wilson's so far back, but like I said, these mock drafts differ based on opinion. And that is why I think you see a lot of teams go with every draft night. There's always teams that pick somebody you're not expecting. And it's because they have those sit down meetings with those players and they talk with their personalities, and everybody's different and they find the right fit. So very good list there. Justin, let's go to you. Now, you've already talked about Kellen Mond being up in your top 5 quarterbacks. You know, you've talked about, what was it, Mac Jones being one of the best quarterbacks in this draft. I want to know your top 5 quarterback list.
So yeah, my top 5 quarterback list is going to shock some people. That's just, I mean, I can just go by what I see on the film, you know, and what I can see. And what I can see is obviously Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I don't think he's my number 1. So my number 1 is Zach Wilson. All right. Zach Wilson, if you've watched his games, the way he throws the ball, the way he commands his offense, the talent that he had. I mean, come on, he's a generational type person. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Like I said, multi Super Bowl champion one day. So he's my number 1. My number 2 is Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot to like with Trevor Lawrence. But of course, you know, there was a lot not to like with Trevor Lawrence as well. Some of the ways he threw the ball, his decision-making sometimes wasn't always the best. And so he's my number 2. My number 3 is Mac Jones. Mac Jones is the only negative I came back with when watching film of Mac Jones. The only negative I came back was he doesn't look cool in his uniform. And then my number 4, Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond, 9-1 at SEC last year, just tore it up. And if you watch his film, he is a plug-in, ready to start right now quarterback. I believe he should be a first-round quarterback this year. But a lot of teams aren't as high on him as some people are. But
One person is.
Chris Sims made a perfect point about Kellen Mond. The way he throws the ball. It's the best other than Zach Wilson I've seen. My number 5 is going to shock some people.
Wait. To the people at home, did you say number 5 is going to shock some people?
Number 5 is going to shock some people. Many people haven't talked about him.
Like Kellen Mond.
Many people haven't talked about him.
I know who it is. I have a guess of who it is.
All right.
What is your guess?
I can't believe I'm going to say this. It's going to be Sam Ehlinger, is it not?
It's not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He played
guys, I think I might have just turned off the podcast and started a new podcast. I'm sorry.
He comes out of the Pac-12, right? And this guy, I mark my words, in 2 years will be a franchise quarterback. In 2 years, he will be a franchise quarterback. I think he's very underrated. Not many people are talking about him, but he's going to come in and he's just going to just dominate the NFL. For my number 5, and that's Davis Mills, from Stanford. This guy is everything you want in a quarterback. And my NFL comparison to him is he is a prototypical Tom Brady. That's my NFL comparison. The way he throws the ball, he's not fast at all. I think in his pro day he ran a 5.1 if I can remember. He ran a 5.1 if I can remember correctly. I think he's very underrated. This guy is a superstar, and I'm going with Davis Mills from Stanford to round out my top 5. Of course, just missing the top 5 would be number 6 would be Justin Fields, and then Trey Lance right behind him would be my 6 and 7 quarterbacks. There's a lot to like from them, but I think that those guys will end up being busts in the NFL. I just don't see how their games just don't translate to the NFL as well as these guys' games do. These guys are ballers. These guys are franchise quarterbacks, definitely. And I can see this guy being a dark horse. He's going to be like a Tom Brady, where he goes really late in the draft, but he shows his ability that he had all along. And Davis Mills from Stanford round out my top 5.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it shocks a lot of people, But I'm telling you, he's an amazing quarterback. And he's very underrated, and he's going to be the Tom Brady where he was drafted late but ended up being a superstar. And so Davis Mills is he's incredible, and like I said, Kellen Mond should be up there. He should be up there past Justin Fields and all of them just because of the way he throws the ball at his feet.
well, ladies and gentlemen, when I say hot takes, that is all we bring here at the locker room. That is hot takes. If there's ever somebody that will bring you the hottest of hot takes, that is Mr. Justin Corey. Well, listen, I can't hate on people for their lists. All right. I've seen some pretty dumb mock drafts. Now, I don't know who that quarterback that Justin was talking about was, but but let's move on to our last subject of the day, guys. Teams that are most likely to trade up. Justin, I will start with you here. What is your list of teams? And there's no particular number here, but do you have a list of teams that are most likely to trade up in this draft?
I mean, yeah. So the few that I've heard and coming up, the few that I've heard is the Falcons trading out of that pick, and the two teams that I've heard wanted to trade up that pick are the Chicago Bears. They have been in talks with Atlanta about wanting to trade up to that number 4 pick and drafting a quarterback. And I've also heard about the Denver Broncos wanting to trade up. Those are the two teams that I have heard wanting to trade up to that number 4 spot. Both of them, they could be good needs for them. I just, just the value of that number 4, it's going to take a lot to get that number 4 pick from Atlanta. And so with their needs on their team, I don't know if it would be necessarily the best idea to trade up for that pick. But I see both those teams have been in talks with Atlanta to trade up for that pick. I've also heard that Washington would like to trade out of their pick and accrue more picks. So, those are just a few teams that I've just heard that have been in talks with other teams about trading out of their picks.
Seth, I'll go to you here. Do you have a list of teams or even a scenario that you think might be happening on draft day?
Yeah, I think there's an extremely high probability of the Falcons not having the 4th pick.
I agree.
I've also heard that the Patriots could definitely use Gilmore on draft day to either acquire a second first-round pick or to move up from 15.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be shocked with the draft capital that the Dolphins have gotten from trading the 3rd pick if they got rid of the 18th and a couple of the picks that they have gotten and moved up.
Yeah,
I have two
top
heard
10 picks. I have heard that the Dolphins have 2 guys in mind that they would like to pick. One of those will be, of course, the 6th overall pick. But then one that they say might not even last out of the top 10. So if there's ever a team that could make a move, the Miami Dolphins do have the assets to move those picks around. Any other picks that you have or any other teams that you think might be trading up in this draft?
I just biasedly, I wouldn't mind the Titans looking into it, but they probably won't. And that's probably my list of teams to trade.
Yeah, so going on to mine, teams that might trade up. Most of these are probably for the Falcons, number 4 overall pick. I've heard the New England Patriots has been a talk of the town. The only reason I think the New England Patriots would trade up to that 4th overall pick is if they had a quarterback in mind that they knew would be there at number 4. If not, I think the Patriots are going to be able to get whatever they want on draft night at their 15th overall pick. But if they have a person in mind that they would like to trade up for, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Justin Fields, or whoever that they think is going to be available, the Patriots have always done a pretty darn good job of moving up in the draft, and they always make a ton of noise. Come draft night. A second team that the Denver Broncos. Same thing for me, though. The Denver Broncos have no business trading up if they don't have a set quarterback in mind that they know will be there. And I don't know that there's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft that I'm giving up, to trade for. Like, there's not a quarterback in mind that is going to be available at the 4th overall spot that I'm the Denver Broncos. I'm saying this guy is better than what we already have. So for me, the Denver Broncos are probably out of question here. Moving on to number 3, the Chicago Bears. Once again, it's the same type of scenario. All these teams have talked about moving up, but all these teams have to have a quarterback in mind, and I don't know if the 4th overall pick is going to get them the quarterback that they need. The most likely team for me that would move up would be the Washington football team or probably the Patriots. The Washington football team is interesting to me because they are very interested in Trey Lance and they are very interested in Justin Fields. And there's I would say an 80 to 90% possibility that either one of those guys is going to be available at the 4th overall pick. So do they like both of those guys enough to move all the way up to the 4th overall pick? That is the big question here when it comes to the Washington football team. Justin, any last words when it comes to your quarterback picks or any moving up in this draft?
Just for me, there's a lot of value in this draft. This might not be the deepest draft since last year, but this draft this year has players who can change teams, like change their whole team. And so with that, you can't go wrong with any of these guys that, these teams draft. And so we'll just have to see how it shapes out on draft night. And, I'm rooting always for my Chicago Bears to get someone that can plug in and they can help them right away as a Chicago Bears fan. But, of course, I really hope that, all these guys pan out and it's just going to be a special night for those guys. And so, we'll just have to see how it all goes.
Seth, any final thoughts on the draft? Any kind of moving up? Any quarterbacks? Any final thoughts before we get it going on this episode?
Yeah, I got one thing for you.
Okay.
If the Falcons wanted to do something crazy, they could trade their 4th pick to Jacksonville. And I don't mean Jacksonville's first. I mean Jacksonville's 25th, giving Jacksonville 2 top 4 picks in this year's draft, but also the Falcons accumulating more than likely 4 to 5 picks in this draft. One of them still being a first rounder, just late, which would significantly help them. And it would also help Jacksonville. And I think Jacksonville would be willing to do it if they were able to get 2 top 4 picks.
That's a very interesting point. So do you have a tandem in mind? Of course, we know Trevor Lawrence is gone first. Do they get Trevor Lawrence an insane weapon like Kyle Pitts, or would they go offensive lineman and go Penei Sewell?
That I don't know, because their offensive line definitely needs help. And Sewell would be a lock for me. But at the same time, they have some decent weapons at wide receiver, and an incredible tight end such as Pitts would just really ignite Trevor Lawrence. And either way, they'd be in great position. But definitely one of those two would be the pick.
Well, a very interesting take. I think I can hop on board. Listen, there's a lot of draft conspiracies that float around. That was a good one by Seth Thornton. Seth, Justin, thank you for coming back on the show. They will be joining us live on draft night. I will be playing the role of the commissioner. We will have the full list of picks. It will be available just like the draft night show. So if you're watching it at home and you want to tune in and just listen to us ramble and hear some funny takes, laugh along with us, talk about the draft, we are going to be here live the entire first round of the NFL draft. Gentlemen, I will see you very soon.
Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it. Another draft show is in the books. I want to thank you all so much for joining us here at the Locker Room. Listen, if you are on social media, giving us a follow will do wonders for our program. I promise you, you might not think so, but your one follow can change our trajectory from a small growth to a large growth overnight. So just give us a follow on our social media, interact with us. I'd love to talk with you anytime, day or night. I'm usually on my social media. Guys, hope you enjoyed the show today, and gals. That was just, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the show today. I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.